Every champion has a beginning, before the trophies, before the roaring crowds, before the flashing cameras, before millions of fans knew her name. There was simply a little girl with an oversized tennis racket and a dream far bigger than she could possibly imagine. Today, the world knows her as Alex Eala, one of the brightest talents ever to emerge from the Philippines. Her remarkable journey has inspired countless young athletes and brought renewed excitement to tennis in her country. But long before international tournaments and worldwide recognition, Alex was just another energetic child growing up in Quezon City, Philippines. No one watching her run around the court could have known what the future held. No one could predict that this cheerful little girl would one day compete against some of the biggest names in professional tennis. Every incredible story starts with a single step. For Alex, that step began with a tennis ball. Born on May 23, 2005, Alexandra Alex Eala grew up in a family that valued discipline, education, and sports. Unlike many children who discover sports by accident, Alex grew up in an environment where athletic excellence was appreciated and encouraged. Her mother, Riza Maniguila, had represented the Philippines in swimming during the 1985 Southeast Asian Games. She understood what it meant to train hard, make sacrifices, and compete under pressure. Her father, Mike Eala, always supported the family's sporting ambitions and encouraged his children to pursue their passions. But perhaps the person who would have the greatest influence on Alex's early tennis journey was someone else. Her grandfather. He wasn't just a loving family member. He became her very first tennis teacher, her very first guide, the first person who believed that this tiny little girl might have something truly special. Every afternoon after school, the family would often spend time at local tennis courts. For Alex, those courts didn't feel intimidating. They felt magical. The sound of tennis balls bouncing, the squeak of shoes on the court, the cheers from nearby matches, everything fascinated her. She wasn't thinking about championships. She wasn't dreaming about Wimbledon. She simply loved being there. At only 4 years old, she picked up a tennis racket for the first time. The racket looked enormous in her tiny hands. Sometimes she struggled just to swing it. Sometimes she completely missed the ball. Sometimes she laughed at herself after another failed attempt. But she never stopped trying. And that determination, even as a little girl, quietly hinted at the champion she could become. Her grandfather never measured success by winning. Instead, he focused on something much more important. Enjoy the game. Learn every day. Never give up. If Alex missed a shot, he didn't criticize her. He calmly smiled and encouraged her to try again. One more swing, one more step, one more chance. Those simple moments built something far greater than powerful forehands or accurate serves. They built confidence, patience, discipline, and an enduring love for tennis. Without realizing it, Alex wasn't just learning a sport. She was building a mindset that would one day carry her to the world's biggest stages. The little girl standing on that neighborhood tennis court had no idea that, years later, millions of people would cheer for her around the world. She had no ranking, no medals, no headlines, no interviews. Only a dream that was just beginning to take shape. And very soon, that dream would face its first real test. Her first competitive tennis match. A day filled with excitement, nervousness, and a lesson she would never forget. Every great athlete remembers one thing, not their first trophy, not their first championship, but the first time they realized, this is what I want to do. For Alex Eala, that realization didn't happen overnight. It happened one practice, one swing, and one tennis ball at a time. As the weeks turned into months, the little girl who once struggled to make contact with the ball was beginning to surprise everyone around her. She was still only a child, still small enough that her racket looked too big for her hands. But every day, she became a little stronger, a little quicker, a little more confident. Unlike many children who lose interest after a few days, Alex always wanted to return to the court, even after a long day at school, even under the hot Philippine sun. She would ask, "Can we play again?" That simple question became almost a daily routine. Her grandfather noticed something different. Most children chase the ball because it was fun. Alex chased every ball because she wanted to improve. Whenever she missed a shot, she didn't become frustrated for long. Instead, she wanted to know how to hit it better the next time. Every mistake became a lesson. Every practice became an opportunity. Without realizing it, she was developing one of the most important qualities of every future champion: the willingness to learn. Practice sessions slowly became more organized. Instead of simply hitting the ball back and forth, Alex began learning the fundamentals of tennis: how to hold the racket correctly, how to move her feet, how to keep her eyes on the ball, how to stay balanced after every shot. To many adults, these might seem like small details, but in tennis, the smallest habits often create the biggest champions. And Alex listened carefully. She absorbed every lesson, every correction, every piece of advice. Soon, other people at the tennis courts began noticing the cheerful little girl. She's improving quickly. She has excellent focus. Look how hard she works. Comments like these became more common. Of course, no one was talking about Grand Slam titles. No one was predicting international success. But people could already see something special. Not just talent, character. Because talent may help you in a match. Character helps you survive an entire career. At home, tennis slowly became part of everyday life. Conversations around the dinner table often included practice. What went well today? What could be improved tomorrow? How can we become just a little bit better? For Alex, improvement wasn't something forced upon her. She genuinely enjoyed the process. She loved learning. She loved competing. And most importantly, she loved the game itself. Then came a moment every young athlete eventually faces. Her coaches and family believed she was ready for something new. Not another practice, not another training session, but her very first competition, a real junior tennis tournament. For many children, that first tournament can feel overwhelming. New faces, unknown opponents, parents watching from the sidelines, officials keeping score. The pressure suddenly feels different. Practice is one thing. Competition is another. When Alex first heard she would be entering a tournament, excitement and nervousness arrived together. She had imagined playing real matches. Now that moment was finally here. Questions began racing through her young mind. What if I lose? What if everyone is better than me? What if I make mistakes? These are questions every athlete asks before their first competition, even future champions. The difference is not the absence of fear. The difference is learning to play despite it. The days before the tournament became even more focused. Practice sessions were no longer just about improving. They were about preparing, serving with confidence, returning difficult shots, moving quickly across the court, staying calm under pressure. Her grandfather reminded her of something simple. Winning isn't the most important thing. Play your best. Enjoy every point. Learn from every moment. Those words would stay with Alex for years to come. Finally, the night before her very first match arrived. Her tennis bag was carefully packed. Her shoes were ready. Her racket rested quietly beside her bed. She tried to sleep, but sleep didn't come easily. Tomorrow would be unlike any day she had ever experienced. Tomorrow, she would no longer be just a little girl practicing tennis. She would become a competitor. And when the sun rose the next morning, Alex Eala would walk onto a tennis court for the first official match of her life. The morning had finally arrived. For most people, it looked like an ordinary day. The sun rose over the Philippines just as it always had. Cars filled the streets. Birds sang in the trees. Families went about their daily routines. But for one little girl, this was no ordinary morning. This was the day of her very first tennis match. A day she would remember for the rest of her life. Long before the first ball was hit, Alex woke up with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had imagined this moment many times during practice. Now it was finally real. Her tennis bag had already been packed the night before. Inside were the things every young player treasures: her racket, a few tennis balls, a towel, a water bottle, a clean outfit, and, perhaps most importantly, a dream. Before leaving home, her family made sure she had everything she needed. There was no dramatic speech, no promises of victory, only quiet encouragement and reassuring smiles. They wanted her to enjoy the experience more than anything else, because they understood something important. A child's first competition should build confidence, not fear. As the family made their way to the tennis venue, Alex looked out the window. The streets passed by one after another. She was unusually quiet. Normally, she was cheerful and talkative, but today, her mind was racing. She imagined the court. She imagined her opponent. She imagined the first serve. Questions filled her head. What if I make mistakes? What if everyone is watching me? What if I'm not good enough? These are the same thoughts that almost every athlete experiences before competing for the first time. Even the greatest champions in history once stood exactly where Alex stood that morning, uncertain, excited, and hopeful. When they arrived at the tennis club, the atmosphere felt completely different from practice. The courts were already alive with activity. Young players stretched beside the fences. Parents chatted quietly while carrying folding chairs and umbrellas. Coaches gave final instructions. The steady rhythm of tennis balls echoed across the courts. For Alex, it felt like stepping into a brand new world. Everything seemed bigger. The courts looked larger. The nets looked higher. Even the sounds felt louder. This wasn't just another day of practice. This was competition. She walked slowly through the venue, holding her racket tightly. Everywhere she looked, children were warming up. Some looked confident. Some looked nervous. Others tried to hide their emotions behind determined faces. Alex realized she wasn't the only one feeling butterflies in her stomach. Every player there had come with the same goal, to play their best. That realization helped her relax. She wasn't alone. Every young athlete starts somewhere. Her grandfather stayed close by. He didn't overwhelm her with instructions. He didn't pressure her to win. Instead, he reminded her of the same simple lessons they had practiced every day. Keep your eyes on the ball. Move your feet. Stay calm. And most importantly, enjoy playing. Those words meant more to Alex than any technical advice, because they reminded her why she had fallen in love with tennis in the first place. Soon it was time to warm up. Alex stepped onto practice court. She bounced gently on her toes. She took a few practice swings. The racket, which once felt heavy in her tiny hands, now felt familiar, comfortable, like an old friend. She hit a few easy forehands, then a few backhands. The first couple of shots weren't perfect. Her timing felt slightly off. The nerves were still there, but with every swing, her confidence slowly returned. Practice had prepared her for this moment. Then, an official called the names of the next players. Alex heard her own name. For a brief second, time seemed to stop. This was it. There would be no more waiting, no more imagining. The moment she had been preparing for was finally here. She took a deep breath. She looked toward her family. They smiled back, not with pressure, but with belief. Her grandfather gave her a gentle nod. He didn't need to say anything. That silent gesture said it all. Just be yourself. Alex adjusted her grip on the racket and began walking toward the match court. Step by step, she crossed the gate. The white lines of the court stretched out before her. The net stood in the middle. On the opposite side, her young opponent was already waiting. 2 children, 1 tennis court, 1 unforgettable beginning. Neither of them knew what the future would hold. But for Alex, every championship, every international tournament, and every major victory would trace its roots back to this very moment. The first walk onto a competitive tennis court, the first match of her life.